What does your customer's reptilian brain have to do with telling your story? We're about to find out the answer to that question and a lot more in this episode of Content Creators Unite, the show where we discuss all things content creation. So if you want to learn how to grow your business using blogs, newsletters, books, and more, hey, you're in the right place. I'm your host, John Clements. Our guest for today's episode is Aurora Winter. Aurora is a successful entrepreneur, best-selling author, TV writer and producer, and founder of Same Page Publishing. Her award-winning books include Turn Words into Wealth and Magic, Mystery, and the Multiverse. Using her expertise in film and neuroscience, she helps people tell memorable stories that build brands, books, and businesses. So Aurora, welcome to the podcast.
Great to be on the show with you, John, and I look forward to helping the listeners turn their words into wealth.
Me too. I am so excited you're here today. You have such good information to share. But before we get to that, would you mind just sharing a little bit about your background and how it is you got into writing and publishing and being on TV, all those things?
Well, I've loved books since I was 9 and read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which we talked about briefly before we started recording. You've got a 12-year-old daughter, so she probably loves it too. But I've had a very interesting life, I think, as a TV producer, an award-winning screenwriter, and a serial entrepreneur who's launched 3 different businesses in different industries that generated 7 figures, including a film and television production company that made 8 films, and we raised $5 million to fund that company. So I have a breadth of experience from writing 10 books to launching various different businesses to being in film and television, and I look forward to helping your audience get some tips and tricks that they can immediately apply today.
Excellent. And I do have a couple of your books in the flesh here. So if you're listening on the podcast, you're not going to see this, but if you're on YouTube, you'll see it. So the book we're going to spend most of our time talking about today is actually Turn Words into Wealth. I'm going to try to get this in frame. Just a wealth of resources for how to communicate your message and grow your business. So we're going to dig into one aspect of that here today. But also, if you just need some chill time to kind of disconnect and just enjoy a book, or like me, if you have a 12-year-old daughter, I highly encourage picking up a copy of Magic, Mystery, and the Multiverse, which is book 1 of 3, I believe, right now. It's a young adult fantasy. It looks really interesting, and I'm excited to read it. So thank you for those, by the way.
Oh, you're so very welcome. And that kind of leads into our discussion of the neuroscience of communication, because as John held up the books, those of you who are not on YouTube, you can see that the books had awards on the cover, which is step number 2 in communicating. But before we get into the 3 steps to communicate effectively, the broad strokes is that actually the message that is sent is not the message received. And this is a common myth. We think because we've delivered a message in writing or speaking or video that the other person received it. That is wrong. Unless you know about neuroscience and follow the 3 steps to communicating effectively, the probability that the message you sent is the message received is very, very low. Shall I dive right into it, or do you have something to add to that, John?
Well, let's just I just want to make sure we're following the path. And so you're right. Neuroscience is really the study of the brain and how it, and in our case, how it impacts this communication channel. So as we get started in this discussion, maybe just give us a refresher for those who maybe didn't take neuroscience in college. This all has to do with basically different portions or parts of the brain. So
that's right.
Could you start with just walking us through the different parts of the brain that are involved and kind of what each of them does?
I'll just walk through 3 parts of the brain because they relate most critically to what we're talking about, communication. So there's the ancient reptilian brain, which I'm just going to call the croc brain because that makes it easy to understand. And that is the initial filter. It's the most ancient part of our brain. And it is looking very simply for, is this something that's going to eat me? Or is this something good to eat or mate with? It's looking for something that's not terrifying or it will run away, but is attractive, but it also is alert to danger. So the first part of our communication needs to address the croc brain and get its attention. It is wrong to assume that you have a person's attention just because they're looking at you or just because you post a video on YouTube. You need to give a compelling reason why they should pay attention, and you should do that in just a few seconds. So the title of a book, say Turn Words into Wealth, the title itself is croc brain. It's like, what is this topic about? Oh, it's about turning words into wealth. If you're interested in that, I get permission for a few more seconds of your attention. So whatever you're doing, think through these 3 steps. And the first one is to hook attention with what is the benefit. So for example, when John introduced me, I didn't just say, oh, hi, I'm Aurora, and start rambling on about my life. I told you what my intention was, which was to help you turn your words into wealth. That's a little taste of a soundbite that appeals to the croc brain. It's like, what is the subject area? What is this about? What's in it for me, the listener or the viewer? So always when you're communicating, see if you can toss out at the very beginning what's in it for them. So for example, so many networking meetings, people will introduce themselves, they'll say their name, they say what they live, they say they're the founder of or the manager of, or they go on to the name of the company. You've already lost people. Start instead with what is your attention, the benefit of listening to you, and then give your name. Even just that slight difference can make a difference, because studies now show that people have attention span of a goldfish. So you really need to deliver a little hook for why they should listen to you in the first few seconds. Don't start by saying, hi, your name. Say, hi, my intention is to help you turn your words into wealth. I'm Aurora Winter. That's much better. And it doesn't take that many more seconds. So that's the first part of the brain. And unless you are something to mate with or eat or that's good and attractive, the croc brain will ignore you. You don't want to just be delivering the same old message, the same old way as everything else. And you also don't want to flood the person with terror, because then they will run away. But a little bit of fear is okay, because people pay attention 5 times more to fear than to something that's good. So, warning, this limited time offer is about to expire, is a little bit of that kind of energy. Anyway, let's move on to the second step. And people usually miss one of these steps. So the croc brain, again, that's like the subject line in an email, or it's the title of a YouTube video, or it's the title of a book. The second step is the midbrain. So the reason that human beings have managed to survive so many millennia is not because we're super strong or super fast and we don't have sharp teeth. It's because of community. It's because of connection. So we are hyper vigilant for who else is involved with this. We want to know the status of the person talking, which is why it's great to be an author, because authors have more status. We also want to know who else thinks this is worthwhile. So for example, the book Turn Words into Wealth, the croc brain is the title, but the second thing is you can see the awards on the cover. That's a little midbrain hit. So the book won Outstanding Nonfiction Book of the year it came out. That satisfies the midbrain. The fact that I'm talking to John and John's talking to me on his podcast is also midbrain. John thinks I'm worth talking to, and vice versa. That's a little bit of midbrain. Or as he mentioned with Magic Mystery of the Multiverse, it won the Readers, you can see the award if you're on YouTube, Reader's Choice Award, Best Book for Teens in the year that it was released. So that's a little midbrain. So it takes longer to explain than to do it, but you want to hit those 2 points before you do step number 3, which is going into some content. You don't have permission for content. And an easy metaphor to remember this is just, if you are receiving an email from an unknown sender with an attachment, how likely are you to open that Excel file? Not very likely. If the email's from somebody that you know, or they say in the subject line, John Clements said I should send you this, I'll probably open it and see what else it says, because it's passed, some tests. So croc brain, hook the attention, midbrain, who else thinks this is worthwhile, and then a little bite of your content. An example of content in the Turn Words into Wealth arena would be that the data shows that a story can add up to 27 times the revenue. The same item for sale with a story or without a story, the story can add 27-fold of revenue. And that was shared in a book called Significant Objects, with a little test that's done on eBay. There's an example of a little short story. I gave a little kernel that appeals to the cerebral cortex. So those are the 3 steps.
So let me ask you, are these 3 steps valid for any kind of communication? So would this work from anything as short as a social media post all the way to a book, or are there different steps depending on what medium you're using, or the length of your message?
The brain is the brain is the brain. So yes, these 3 steps will work for everything. But if you're writing a whole book, it's not like you would just give one croc brain tidbit at the beginning of the book and then one midbrain social proof, and then go on the whole rest of the book being cerebral cortex heavy. You want to do this for each chapter, or you want to do this for each video, or you want to do this for about every 5 minutes of a speech. You always want to be hooking attention. You always want to be re-engaging with the audience and with the listeners and paying attention to what's in it for them. And so every say you have 3 stories in your talk, well, each one could begin with, what's in it for them. Or if your 3 points are very quick, you could deliver those 3 points in 5 minutes, and then your next sequence of 3 points, you again would hook attention. So also, it's very expensive for the brain to pay attention, which most people don't really understand. People can only listen for 20 minutes at most, which is why TED Talks are around 20 minutes. It's very costly in terms of calories, in terms of burning fat, for the brain to actually fully pay attention. So give the person a reason to pay attention, what's in it for them, reassure them that other people think it's worthwhile, and then deliver some value, and then check in with them. The checking in with them in a book might look like, here's some action steps that you could do, or the checking in person would look like me asking John, do you have something to add to that?
So earlier you mentioned that a little bit of fear is a good thing, too much fear is a bad thing. And so I'm just curious, how is like a creator like I am, how can I balance that? And maybe a good way to look at that would even be like, what's a terrible example you found in the wild of that, and kind of dissect why it was wrong.
Well, it is interesting that studies show that people pay attention to something to be afraid of 5 times more than something that's good. But that makes sense, right? Because it triggers are we going to survive? Like people are panicking now about the stock market. It's like, the sky is falling. So triggering fear can look very simple though. So for example, in the first chapter of Turn Words into Wealth, I do talk about the benefits of learning how to communicate better, but I also talk about the disadvantages of not learning how to communicate better. So if people don't learn how to live up to their full potential and communicate, they'll lose out on clients, they'll lose out on dating relationships, they'll lose out on opportunities to speak in front of a crowd, they'll lose out on the opportunity to live up to their full potential. And it could potentially cost them, 7 figures of revenue. So it's all right to lean into, here's some benefits of what I'm up to, but here's the disadvantages of not having it. So for example, John, one of the things I know about you is you're a fantastic editor and you help people make their books perfect. So you could talk at length about all the benefits of being perfect, but you could also talk about, look, you've put all this effort into writing your book. On average, first-time authors take 3.5 years to write a book. And then do you want it to get a 1-star review on Amazon because you didn't proof it properly and it's got typos in it? I mean, that would be embarrassing. That would be mortifying. And what a tragic waste after you put 3.5 years or whatever amount of time into writing your book. That's an example of fear, right? I didn't have to go on and on, but I triggered, here's some benefits, but here, if you don't do it, here's a disadvantage. So that would be a good example.
I like that example because I think yes, it involves fear, but you're not trying to scare someone necessarily or manipulate them. You're just saying, look, there's advantages and disadvantages. And one thing in my world, I see a lot of people who are praising all the things that AI and LLM can do, and very few people are talking about the drawbacks. And they're real, and I think you need to know about them. It's not don't use it. It's just have a full picture of what your options are and the pros and cons. So like with your example for what I do exactly, yes, you don't have to hire me to edit your book, but you do run the risk of letting embarrassing typos through, or you do run the risk of taking a lot of time and effort to do it yourself when you might be able to use that time better if you just hired me, right? Those are
Not a professional author. Exactly.
yeah.
Well, one of the things I love to do at Same Page Publishing is really emphasize to my clients or to people listening to this that it's not just about finishing a book and having it properly proofread. It's also about having a marketing plan to market the book. So at Same Page Publishing, we apply for book awards before the book comes out. We get reviews before the book comes out. We hire a professional editor to proofread it, even though I've gone through it and the author's gone through it multiple times. It, pays to have the fresh eyes. And it just hurts my heart how many people put so much love and effort into their book, into the manuscript, and then they drop the ball at the finish line. They don't test the title and subtitle. They don't test the cover image. They don't have any call to action. They don't apply for awards before the book comes out. They don't set up to have at least 20 reviews the week the book comes out. They don't set up in advance to be a new release. You can only apply before you release to get promoted on certain sites that can promote new releases. So you're not born with this information. So it behooves people who want to have a great launch of their book to work with a professional who's done it many times and knows what to do, or at the very least, research it and read books about it, because you only have one chance to make a first impression. That would be another example of a little tiny taste of fear. That's a little tiny fear bite. You only have one chance to make a first impression.
It's true. That's great. And yeah, it is true. And I love that in like 60 seconds, you just basically dropped the mic on this is how you release a book and market it. So I'm going to go back. When I edit this, I'll go back and take notes for sure. But for the listeners, samepagepublishing.com, go check it out, because that's exactly what you're going to get. And like, it makes me want to sit down and write a book right now. Like, that's how exciting that is. One of the other things that we talked about in the green room before we hit record was something you mentioned called the waterfall effect in communication. Can you just kind of explain what that is to people?
Absolutely. And, I'm going to reveal my own naivete at the beginning of my career. I always thought, oh, well, once I've solved this problem, or once I put in all my wisdom into a book, then the reader will get that benefit and they'll be done. That's wrong. So the curious thing is, as an entrepreneur, we solve problems at a profit. So as an entrepreneur, it behooves you to pay attention to the problems that you have, that you've solved, that you might want to offer those solutions to others as a business. So do it as a profit, or you could do it as a gift, but then it's not a business. So for example, the book Turn Words into Wealth, I don't hold back anything. I give 7 different blueprints to make 7 figures with your $1 million message. I explain how to create a $1 million message. I show people examples of $1 million messages, and I pull back the veil and share everything I can about 7 different proven models that I've used, my clients have used, and famous people have used, from David Goggins to say Joe Rogan or Jordan Peterson. And even though I'm not withholding in the book, some people who read that book are going to go, well, that all sounds great. I just want you to do this with me, Aurora. Can you interview me? Can you do the spoken author with me? Can you do the book launch with me? Can you just take charge of the publishing process? And can you make sure that I'm telling my story in the appropriate way to appeal to the croc brain? Like, what order should this all be in? What do I want to say? And so some people, they reach out to me and they schedule a business breakthrough call, or they apply for one with me and my team. They can do that at bookcall.biz. But that would be an example. So every problem you solve leads to another problem. So for example, the first problem is, what is my book about? Oh, and then how do I write that book? How do I put it in the right order? Then the next problem is, well, what's the title? Well, how do I get the book cover to be appealing to that market? How do I make sure that I've got my book in the right categories so it'll sell on Amazon, so that it's properly represented, because you only get 3 categories? How do I launch my book? How do I apply for awards? How do I get book reviews? How do I make sure that it's perfect with somebody like John proofreading it and editing it? And then once your book is launched and it's an award-winning best-selling book, there's still more problems. It's like, okay, now what? How do I, 10x my business using this book? How do I become a keynote speaker? How do I speak on TED Talks? How do I get on podcasts? So I help my clients with all of these problems. So there's a never-ending list of problems. Even if you're making 8 figures, some of my clients just sold their business for 9 figures. They're like, great. Then they have another problem. How do I launch a new business? How do I step up as a thought leader and launch something fun, meaningful, rewarding, that will leave a legacy and be fun to do? So I help with these kinds of problems. But what is it for you, John, but also you, the listener? What problems are you solving now? How can you help other people solve those problems? If you have a book, or if you have videos, or a blog, why not mention all the problems that you can solve now and again and invite people to take the next step with you, whatever that looks like. And then think through, okay, once I've helped them solve this problem, what's the next problem? Maybe that's something you've also solved and that you could help them with.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I love how you kind of approach that concept of problems from multiple angles. As a business owner or service provider, but also as someone doing the work. And one thing that reminded me of is I have a mentor who said that you want to have problems in your life. You want to have new problems because
Yeah.
if you don't have any new problems, you're not growing. And so if you can turn this idea in your head of don't be scared of new problems, be excited for them because it means you're doing something new and growing, then that'll really help. And it's helped me out a ton to embrace those problems and go, hey, this is awesome. I'm in a new step in my business or my relationship or just my own personal growth. And now I have new problems to solve. So I feels like that ties in with the whole idea of the waterfall.
That's exactly right. And that's why I define entrepreneurship as solving problems at a profit, because it reminds me to lean into problems and to pay attention to them. And sure, not every problem that I've solved is something that I want to help others with. But a lot of times, if it's along the whole publishing line, I solve the problems. I've written 10 books. I've got a bunch of book awards. BBC is actually interested in turning the fantasy series Magic Mystery of the Multiverse into a 12-part TV series. I have a background as a film and television producer, so it's easy and natural for me to pitch books as TV series or feature films. And now I help my clients do that as well. So my clients and I go to film festivals together. I help them pitch in advance. I introduce them to my contacts, and they get a chance to turn their legal thrillers or their documentary feature film into something that can reach even more people. But whatever it is for you, as you solve problems, why not make a note of them and consider solving those problems for others? Here's the thing about it: the value of your solution depends on the agony and cost of the mistakes the other person would make making those. So, for example, if you can solve a problem in 10 hours that would take somebody 100 hours to solve and they still get it wrong, your solution is worth a lot. And so you can charge for the value of your solution and not just charge X dollars per hour. Because the
Yeah.
pain, like if a person without your help would make, I don't know, a $25,000 mistake and you can do it in 10 hours, it still is worth $25,000. Or
Yeah. And
you
that's
want them
that's
to have a
key.
profit, so charge $10,000 or whatever,
Sure.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's a key. That's like a great tip for anyone who's getting into entrepreneurship or owning our own business, especially from like the corporate world or from having a boss, is to start thinking about things. And the way you charge is a matter of value and not necessarily the time that I put into it, but the value to the end user. That's a great tip.
Exactly right. So at Same Page Publishing, our commitment is to have a realistic expectation of generating a tenfold return on investment for my clients. So that means that we only work with experts and entrepreneurs who already have thriving businesses or are already professionals or experts, so that it's pretty easy for us to go, oh, yeah, if we write this book and help we launch as a best-selling, award-winning author, you can generate 6, 7, 8, 9 figures from that over the next couple of years. And so that's compelling. So I don't work with people writing, say, a poetry book or not even a recipe book, because that's not my area of expertise. But for experts and entrepreneurs who already have something going that's viable, that's making 6 or 7 or 8 figures, who want to write a book or have maybe they've already written a book, but they want the next one to be amazing and take their business to the next level. Those are the people that we can really make a difference for at Same Page Publishing.
Awesome. And we'll be sure to have, by the way, we'll talk more about this in a minute, but we'll be sure to have the show in the show notes all the links so you can just go straight there, like right now. Just stop listening, go to Sing Page Publishing and check her out. But no, actually, please keep listening. So in the last couple of minutes, I just want to pivot a little bit and I want to get to know you better as a person. I'm really big that we're not just businesses here, like we're human beings, and that's important. So I'm going to assume you have good boundaries in your life and that at least some part of your day you're not working. So what do you like to do for fun when you're not working?
Well, I live right beside a park, so I love getting outside, jogging, exercising. I'm a pickleball fan. So I think it's very complimentary if very intellectual or creative and working, by the computer all day. Get outside, get in the sunshine or get in the snow. I like cross country skiing. So yeah, what about you?
That's awesome. It's hard to get outside for much of the year because I live in Seattle because it rains all the time.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I do, I'm in a band, so I play electric guitar in a rock cover band, and yeah, that's what I do for fun.
That's
Yeah.
fun. Good for you.
Sometimes people who know me, because I'm kind of a big nerd too, if you hadn't picked that up, and they'll say, "You play guitar?" Like, yeah, I play guitar. I don't get it. So, yes, I do.
That sounds like a nice creative outlet.
Yeah, it really is. So also, the one thing I always ask all of my guests on the show, because I just love this question, is what's a piece of wisdom or a life lesson you've learned in your journey? Could be work related, could be life related, that you can share with our audience to just help them be a better person tomorrow than they are today.
I think one of the big things that I learned actually initially from Louise Hay and reading her book, You Can Heal Your Life. But I'm still practicing it every day because it requires mindfulness, is thoughts are things. You are not your thoughts and you are not your feelings. So whatever thoughts you're thinking, observe them. Whatever feelings you're feeling, witness them, have compassion for them, have curiosity about them, but see if you can create a little space where you are the witness instead of being engulfed by your thoughts or your feelings. So I'm actually, my next book is called Mindset Mastery, 5 Questions to Unlock Your Creativity, Prosperity, and Purpose. And it is about those 5 simple questions you can ask. And so I think this mindset is the foundation of everything that we create. So we can work really hard and sabotage ourselves because we've got a disastrous mindset, or we can work little and have great success because we've got an attractive, upbeat, positive mindset. So that would be the little tidbit I'd like to offer to the listeners.
I love that. Yeah, and I think especially since COVID, I think that people are much more aware of emotional health and the importance of it and mindset. And so I think I see more and more things coming out about that. And I am so glad that you're going to add to that because I know it's going to be amazing when you do. And I'll look forward to that book as well. So, Aurora, I am sure that someone out there listening right now has got this book in their head and they don't know what to do. And they've just heard you and said, that's the answer to my problem. So for that person out there, how can they find out more about you and connect with you?
All right. Well, your best step is to grab a copy of Turn Words into Wealth, Blueprint for Your Business, Brand, and Book. It shares 7 different recipes to create 7 figures from what you're up to. I used to love speaking to everybody who called, but I really can only afford to speak to people who take the time to read the book first. There's decades of my expertise in it. So rather than jumping on a call with me or somebody on my team and asking fundamental questions, please read Turn Words into Wealth first. And I make it easy. You can even get the free ebook if you go to turnwordsintowealth.com. It's not about me selling books. It's about me making a difference. After you've read Turn Words into Wealth, if you are an expert or an entrepreneur who's already got something going, you're making 6, 7, or 8 figures and you want help, then jump on, apply for a business breakthrough call. You can do that at bookcall.biz. All those links are at samepagepublishing.com, samepagepublishing.com. You can see all the books that I've helped people with. And I'd love to be of service and help you create an award-winning best-selling book that makes a difference and makes some income.
Excellent. And again, we'll have all those in the show notes too. So just, look down and you'll see them. They'll be right there. So Aurora, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you, John. It was a joy to connect with you.
I agree. And to the listeners, if you enjoyed our discussion today, please be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. I bring on wonderful experts just like Aurora every week, and I get them to share their secrets so that you can grow your business and become a better person. And so you don't want to miss out on that. So with that, have a great day, and we'll see you next time on the Content Creators Unite podcast.